doing Kirtan? Yeah, come sit in the front. It's wake up. It's not 4:30 yet. Yeah, we're usually not on time. Okay. There you go.
Who is an expert or something, but I'm in a mood of more sharing what I have received from different teachers. Krishna has been extremely kind. I have some wonderful teachers who have taught me some wonderful stuff. So I want to, in a mood of sharing, I'm doing this session. This was supposed to be Dravida Prabhu's part, like, he was supposed to be doing. It's very difficult to follow his act. He's just an amazing person. I was told just a day ago that I have to do this session, and let's see, Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Thank you so much for a wonderful kirtan. It's actually one of my favorite melodies. You made me cry. And thanks to Balram Prabhu for, setting the mood. It's all mercy of the spiritual master. And when she was doing kirtan, I was thinking, the old Hema becoming Himangi, and today I'm here. It's a journey. It's been a long journey, a wonderful journey. Today I'm here to celebrate all my unmet needs, my failures, my success stories, and I'm very grateful that I have wonderful parents. They're not perfect, but while I was going through this presentation, I was appreciating how they allowed me to be who I am, allowed me to be myself, even though my teachers, my relatives, everybody tried to put me in a box, but they didn't. I'm grateful that they didn't ever put me in a box. Then I met my spiritual master, a wonderful husband, a wonderful teacher in Krishna Leela Mataji. They too didn't put me in a box. They allowed me to be who I am. And here I am. And then of course I met all of you. Most of you in this room are my friends. And you all have also accepted me for who I am and never put me in a box. So thank you. So I'm here to celebrate my friendship with all of you. And I'm not here because I'm an expert on the subject. I'm here to share what lately I have been working on, I have been meditating upon. In fact, 6 weeks ago when Maharaj called me he asked me, can you do this? And I said, I was very sick. And I said, no, I don't think I can do this time because I don't see myself as a public speaker. And I keep saying this every time I have to do these presentations. It's most dreadful, scary experience. And then it goes on YouTube. And last time, my first, anyway, I don't want to get there. So, well, then but I had to go through this journey because I had to face my fears. I had to face what prevents me from doing what Krishna wants me to do or spiritual master wants me to do. So I'm very grateful that Maharaj insisted that I should do this presentation. Does everyone have a piece of paper here? Okay. Pencils? Paper, pencils? Okay. If you don't have, here is Haridwani Prabhu. There. So Prabhu, during the thing, just watch, who comes in and you can just go and give them. Rasika Manjari, Prema Rasa, this Prabhu here. Okay. Before we start, take a couple of minutes. Each one of you can write either a sankalpa or what your expectation is from when you see a title like this, self-compassion, removing the blocks that keeps us from remembering Krishna. Have what are you expecting for yourself from this? A sankalpa or something that you want to see. And let's see if we can meet that expectation, or we can, just take a minute or two. Okay. I have a next question for all of you. Please write how you're feeling right now. 1 or 2 feelings. How are you feeling right now? Sad, happy, tired, bored, inspired. Don't worry, I will not ask you to share that. It's for your own personal reflection. You don't have to raise your hands, but the third question is, you can write it and you don't have to share. Are you here at this moment in this room for this presentation by your free will choice, or you feel that you must be here because blah, 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 or I should be here, blah, blah, blah? It's a choice, or is it something you felt that you should do it or you must do it because you have a relationship with me, and how will she feel if I don't attend her seminar even though I'm exhausted and tired? Oh, thank you. There were few questions that everybody had to answer. You can ask your neighbor what it is, and you can. And now we start our journey, a journey that's going to be, the language will be slightly different than what you are been hearing, and it will be different than what you're used to. It's actually the few months ago in my service, I was in a situation. Okay, before that, why did I choose this topic? It's called Non-Violent Communication, a Language of Love. And I chose this because we all want to be in a relationship with Krishna. And the topic is, we don't want to forget him, you know? Always remember Krishna, don't forget him. But to come to that stage of always remembering Krishna and not to forget him, never to forget him, we have to go through layers, or go through a journey of first dealing with a relationship with ourselves. And you'll understand as I go about with the presentation. So there is this amazing person, his name is Marshall Rosenberg. He's the architect of this whole process called the non-violent communication. You can go to then. Does somebody want to read? You want to read?
If violent means acting in ways that result in hurt or harm, then much of how we communicate could indeed be called violent communication.
So, okay, maybe this can go around. I think that's connected to the. So, if violent means acting in ways that result in hurt or harm, then much of how we communicate could indeed be called violent communication. So, we all go through this, right? In our day-to-day experience, we are in conversations and we have all good intentions, but something happens, and in the process, sometimes we tend to hurt somebody unintentionally, and sometimes intentionally, but I'm even talking about unintentionally. It's not that we want to harm somebody, or it happens. Can we go to the next slide? Somebody wants to read this? Slowly and clearly, okay?
Nonviolent communication is based on the idea that all human beings have the capacity for compassion and only resort to violence or behavior that harms others when they do not recognize more effective strategies for meeting needs. Habits of thinking and speaking that lead to the use of violence, psychological and physical, are learned through culture. NVC theory supposes all human behavior stems from attempts to meet universal human needs, and that these needs are never in conflict. Rather, conflict arises when strategies for meeting needs clash. NVC proposes that if people can identify the needs of others, and the feelings that surround these needs, harmony can be achieved.
Thank you, Prabhu. Can we go to the next slide? This is what Maharaj had shared in the morning from Jaiva Dharma.
How can the mind, dominated by lamentation, fear, anger, greed, envy, etc., meditate upon Sri Krishna? A devotee may become afflicted by lamentation and illusion because of the death of a family member, or because a coveted desire remains unfulfilled, but he must not allow such feelings to paralyze and cripple him. It is natural to mourn the demise of a son, but one must quickly overcome such unhappiness by taking shelter of Sri Krishna and praying to him for solace and strength. In this way, a devotee must train himself to always remember the lotus feet of the Lord in all conditions.
So through our presentation today, we are going to address these unfulfilled desires or unmet needs, and how we can overcome those, the unhappiness that we experience in our life. So while we are taking a different approach, it may look like that, but it's a very Krishna conscious approach. But you remember that parallelly, we need to take shelter of the holy name, we need to chant, to support the process that we are going to now, look into. So how is this non-violent communication connected to the topic that we are discussing? If you closely pay attention, what happens is that the reason we can't remember Krishna, if you really pause for a minute and you ask, at this moment, am I remembering Krishna, or where is my attention? Most of the time, the attention is on something that's on our mind. It's something about ourselves, something we said, something we did, or somebody said something to us and we are feeling in a particular way. And that's the obstacle. And that's why we can't remember Krishna. So if we are going to focus on that part, the self. Why? Until and unless we don't address these feelings that we are feeling and where they're coming from, it will be very hard to constantly remember Krishna. So what we're going to do right now is, I'm sorry, I'm not good at working with all these PowerPoints and, So we're going to do a role play. And before we do the role play, I'm going to read something from Marshall Rosenberg's book. listen carefully, and then I would ask Sri Rupa and Yashodanandan to come forward to do the role play. It's called Remembering the Specialness of What We Are. In the play, 1,000 Clowns by Herb Gardner, the protagonist refuses to release his 12-year-old nephew to child welfare authorities, declaring, "I want him to get to know exactly the special thing he is, or else he won't notice it when it starts to go. I want him to stay awake. I want to be sure he sees all the wild possibilities. I want him to know it's worth all the trouble just to give the world a little goosing when you get the chance. And I want him to know the subtle, sneaky, important reason why he was born a human being and not a chair." Were you able to understand what's being said here? No? Yashodanandan said it very nicely. You want to share? I know sometimes it's very hard to understand if somebody's reading.
What Himangi Mataji was reading relates to the idea that each of us has unique strengths or capabilities or ways of looking at things in the world around us, and that different systems, whether it's our immediate social network or larger society, expect us to conform in a certain way to certain ways of doing things. What Himangi Mataji was alluding to earlier when she said about teachers boxing her into a certain way of thinking or a certain outlook on life, etc. So this gentleman in the passage Himangi Mataji was reading was protesting against that system that everybody has to think and act in the same way.
Yeah. And generally, in any spiritual organization, there's a tendency, because we see certain things, everybody is dressed in a particular way, everybody acts in a particular way, and then somebody who is new thinks, "Oh, I have to be like this." It's not that you should not be like that, but there is a journey before you become like that. It should come from within. It's a choice you make with a complete understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. So we'll do a role play. Where is Sri Rupa? There. And Yashodanandan. Do you need microphone? Okay. I think both of them have a loud voice, so I think. Students who is a turtle and a monkey, and their test was that they have to climb a tree. And so how did the turtle's nature was that it swims in the ocean or sea, you know. He's not meant to be climbing trees, so he's bound to fail. But how did the turtle react? What were the words he was using? I'm a loser. I can't do anything. So do we all experience this? Sometimes when we are given a task to do and we fail to do, and then we start labeling ourselves. So what is lost when we forget the subtle, sneaky, important reason why we were born a human being and not a chair? We're all very unique, right? We're very unique, and we have our strengths and we have our shortcomings. So what happens? So what happens is, the next slide. Anybody wants to read? Maybe Mataji's, give an opportunity for Mataji's to read.
When critical self-concepts prevent us from seeing the beauty in ourselves, we lose connection with the divine energy that is our source.
So, Marshall in his own language is saying that we disconnect with Krishna. So when we disconnect from Krishna, who is our divine source, how are we going to even remember him? So that, for me, I'm very marveled how, even though these people are not devotees, but they're empowered by Krishna in a particular area to bring these fine points, you know. And when I read this, I was really appreciating the depth of what he's trying to communicate here. So what happens is we kind of get, you can go to the, yeah. We get conditions to view ourselves as objects full of shortcomings. Has anybody felt like this in their life? No matter how good we are, we still feel that how terrible we are and somebody else is so much better, and why can't we be like them? Or when will I ever be able to do this or do that? Forget about, like, you know, getting prema bhakti, forget that. You know, why can't I get up in the morning to chant my rounds? You know, why can't I just be committed to my commitments, like, you know? We go through these things. And one of the reasons we go through these things is because we're constantly evaluating ourselves. We are constantly evaluating, we have a picture of ourselves to be perfect. We kind of have these expectations for ourselves. And when we don't, like, meet those expectations, we have this, what is called self-judgments. We talk about, we go through these different very destructive feelings, and it's very counterproductive. It's actually, you know, instead of helping ourselves think positively, we think very negatively about ourselves. And so, you can go to the next thing. Somebody can read that.
If the way we evaluate ourselves leads us to feel shame, and we consequently change our behavior, we are allowing our growing and learning to be guided by self-hatred. Shame or guilt are a form of self-hatred.
I would like you all to take a pause. Read this again and let that integrate in your system. It's very important. So action taken in reaction to shame or guilt are not free and joyful acts. So one may be doing the right act because we think we are supposed to be doing that, we must do that, we should do that, you know. And yet we are not feeling joyful, we are not feeling happy because the underlying energy or the reasoning is sometimes shame, guilt, fear. These decisions are not made from the space of, I want to contribute to my life. I want to contribute to other people's life. I want to contribute to the society, to the community. It's coming from personal fears, guilt, shame. So even though sometimes, have you experienced that? We do the right things and yet we are not happy. How many of you have felt that? Yeah. So when that happens, we'll go through that. We have to take a pause and see. And there's one very violent language. Marshall calls it violent. Is the word. Can you guess what the word is? Anybody can guess the word? What's that one violent word? Should. And can anyone guess why this word Marshall calls it very violent? Should. You can raise your hand and I can pass on the microphone. There is, okay. You can, no, you can say and then she will. It's not. Wait.
We are not giving the choice, but saying like, you have to do it.
It's not coming from internal, it's like somebody's imposing their idea and you want it to adapt to that.
No, this is about yourself. I should do this, not somebody. You're telling this is all about you. Your answer is right, but yes, in many, there are situations when others are telling you. In situations, there are others also who tell us you should do this. But in this context, we are talking about you telling yourself.
Based on outside, I'm making, I should do that. Though I don't want to do it, I should do it.
So he made a perfect point, answer that's the right answer. Because the moment you use the word, I should do this, basically you're taking away the choices that you have. You feel that you don't have a choice. So you have to do what you have to do. And all of us, I'm sure, go through that, isn't it? I go through that almost every day in my life. Every day. So what do we do? What do we do? And especially I'm from India. And those who are from India can relate with this. Our teachers always talk in the language of, you should do this. And parents talk the language, you should do this. So when I came to this country, and I would talk to Krishna Leela Mataji, Mataji, and I would use should, and she said, ping, ping, no, you cannot use that word. I still use the word should, but it's very difficult to overcome that habit. But it's a big no. It's like almost a curse word for Marshall, if you use should, So when we use, it's the next slide, same thing that he said. When we use the word should with ourselves, we resist learning because should implies that there is no choice. So any act that's done with this mood that I should do it, it doesn't fester learning. It's not towards growth. It's not towards life. So that's the reason it's a very violent word, because you're not really helping yourself. You're actually harming yourself by engaging in this kind of conversation. Yeah. So translating, now next thing is, okay, how do you translate these self-judgments and inner demands that we have? Somebody wants to read? Is the pace of the presentation okay? Is everybody able to follow what I'm trying to say here? Is everyone with me? Haribol, Haribol. Okay, everyone is with me.
Whenever we imply that someone is wrong or bad, what we really what we are really saying is that he or she is not acting in harmony with our needs.
Pause and silently read this statement again for yourself. Next.
If the person we are judging happens to be ourselves, what we are saying is, I myself am not behaving in harmony with my own needs.
So what he's trying to tell here is that, let's take an example. I always think that when I get into a meeting, and I know it's going to be a very challenging meeting, and I go with all these mantras, you know, and sometimes I fail to follow all these principles. My desire or my need is that I help with the solution process, but I many times fail to do the right thing the right way. So what happens is that because this urge, this tendency, you know, to do it my way and the way I want to do it, it actually prevents me from doing it in a way that actually I want to see the result to be, like, you know. So I'm actually going against what I really want to see in myself. Have you all experienced that? You know that you want to behave in a particular way, you want to do it because you know that this is not the right thing to do. And yet repeatedly we keep doing the same things over and over again, and then we come like, man, you know, when will I learn my lesson? Like, you know, seems like I'll never learn my lesson, and man. And mine was a typical thing. I'm a talker, you know, and I keep saying this. I grew up with boys playing soccer, cricket, and I came to Krishna consciousness. Matajis are supposed to be Matajis, and Prabhujis are supposed to be Prabhujis, and Matajis should not laugh loudly. There's all this definition, and I never fit into that. I struggled. Imagine the first day I walked into this temple for a Sunday feast program, I was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, like a kurti. And the temple president was giving class on Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, you're not this body, you know, your soul. And he says that women think that when they wear pants, they become men. And I was like, no, I wear pants because I want to wear pants, you know, not because I want to be a man, like, you know. And it was a big journey. It was not an easy journey. And I remember in 2005, Prema Tarangni's house, Marge was staying, and I was super mental because I was hearing all this class about Devahuti and Rukmini, and I'm thinking, man, that's far out. I can never follow those examples. I can't relate with those examples. I'm miserable, so I went to Maharaj crying, and you never know, sometimes he just opens the door. So I said, I'm not a chaste wife, and he goes, you know, literally his body goes like this, and I'm not a chaste wife, and he said, he looks at my husband, Nityananda Pran, what do you think, you know? I don't think so, you know, I don't know why she feels like that. And Maharaj said, even I don't think so. I don't know why she feels like that. And then, you know, he asked me, why do you feel so? So I said, I'm loud. I laugh loudly. For me, you know, transitioning from jeans to sari, even though I'm Indian, was a big thing. Women are, you know, blah, 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 blah. And then he very simply said, oh, all that is just, you know, you need to come to a platform, mode of goodness. And I said, okay, cheese. So I'm not even in mode of goodness now. So, and really, it was a very hard journey. So there were all this, you know, inner, I wanted to act in a particular way. And I could eventually understand why it is important, why Prabhupada, had such a cultural nuances, it was important, it's very important, there's a place for that. So I have this deep internal desire to follow that. But I repeatedly put myself very unconsciously in situations where I don't follow that. I very much go against what is good for me. And then when I was going through this presentation, I realized what was happening. And what was happening is that there are these needs. What Marshall says is when you're feeling something, these are these unmet needs that prompt us to act or say things in a way that's sometimes very detrimental for ourselves. So self-judgments, like all other judgments, are tragic expressions of unmet needs. So in your paper, write some of the self-judgments that you have about yourselves. Everybody's done writing? Or you still need a minute or so? So the process starts with something called mourning. You can go to the next. Mourning is basically connecting with the feelings and unmet needs stimulated by past actions we now regret. So it's been a lifetime. We are everybody here in this room, most of us are 20 plus. And through socialization and through different experiences, we have learned these self-judgments. And we may think that it's very difficult to transcend these self-judgments that we are carrying. It's very hard. But the good news is, it's also in the same process we can learn, and similarly we can learn to actually understand these feelings and learn how to translate these feelings into your unmet needs or values. It's just practice. So every time you catch yourself, judging yourself because of something you did or something you said, you ask yourself, what is the need underlying that feeling? Connect the feeling with the need or the value that you want that was not fulfilled or you would like to address. Is that clear? Huh? Every time when you catch yourself judging, when you say, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm so lazy, I'm so blah, 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 whatever that is. The moment you catch yourself doing that, ask yourself, what is that unmet need or value underneath that feeling, So you just wrote some of your self-judgments, right? Take a minute or two and try to see, if it's hard, it's okay. If some may not be able to write in such, think through and write, but try to attempt to write, that unfulfilled desire, need, or value, if you can. So what we are mourning is that in the past, we acted on something and we regret. There's an echo. So basically, when we are mourning in the sense that something you have done in the past and you have realized that, okay, I feel bad about it. So now you're acknowledging that and you have regret that, oh, I said something or I acted in a particular way. But that regret, actually there is this thing, should help us to learn what we have done without blaming or shaming ourselves or hating ourselves. Are you understanding? That reflection should happen without blame or hatred or shame. It should not be like, you go back and when you're analyzing or reflecting and you go, man, I'm blah, 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 without that blah, 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 blah you need to do. Then there is a possibility to move forward, to address the feeling, to address the unmet needs. Otherwise, you get into the circle of, again, like, what is important, what I'm trying to say is the energy. What is the motive, the energy behind your mourning stage, the mourning process? That is important. It is not just the act of going to the past and addressing the situation. If you are going back to the past and again you are attacking yourself, then you're not doing the right way. You have to stop it. You have to almost look at the situation with no judgments. So when our consciousness is focused on what we need, we are naturally stimulated toward creative possibilities for how to get that need met. Chatarupa. I'll repeat again. When our consciousness is focused on what we need, we are naturally stimulated towards creative possibilities for how to get that need met. So now let's go back to the role play that we had. The turtle was feeling miserable, and he was like, going through this, I'm stupid, I can't do that, I'm blah, 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 I'm a loser. So what are the other creative possibilities? What are the other creative possibilities that he can, have to not feel or to shame himself or put himself down? Okay. Shravan, and then, okay, you have a mic. Share.
Swim.
But no, the test is that he has to climb the tree. He could have swum.
Except, like, he can't do that.
But he'll fail then. That's his issue. Oh, I'm going to fail. So he wants to pass his test, but he can't do it.
Self-acceptance that it's not my cup of tea, and be happy.
But how is he going to pass the test? He wants to pass the test. Creative possibilities. Think outside the box. Okay, I'll give the women a chance. Hold on. There is a microphone there.
Can he climb on to the monkey and ask the monkey?
Excellent! Yes, that was a creative possibility. The teacher didn't say that you can't take help. We are thinking that because we are thinking, if you heard carefully, the monkey said the teacher wants us to climb the tree as a test. But the monkey didn't say that we have to do it individually. So what is the creative possible solution? The turtle latches onto the back of the monkey and they together climb the tree. Very good. You get an A+. So the process of mourning needs to be supported by something called self-forgiveness. And what Marshall means by self-forgiveness is that we have to empathetically listen to ourselves. We have to pause. And then we'll be able to understand the underlying needs. If we don't do that, it's not possible. So he writes, self-forgiveness occurs the moment this empathic connection is made. When the moment we make that connection, it's very profound. When we make that connection, that what was my need? Can anybody say what was my need when I went crying to Mara saying that I'm not a very chaste woman? A chaste wife, not a woman, chaste wife.
I need to be seen as I am.
Close. A need to belong.
Need to belong, yeah.
Because I felt that I have to fit into the box. All my life, people around me said I was okay not to be in that box. And suddenly I realized that, oh, I'm part of this whole thing. And I would get that, people would say, you're too loud for a woman. You're too this for a woman, you're too that. So then I said, oh, I need to fit into this box. And all of us want to feel accepted. We want to be treated with compassion. We want to be, have friends. And, so there is this human need that we all have. So I wanted to fit in. So that was my need. And then, when talking to Maharaj, when he and my husband both said, oh, we accept you. When I felt accepted, I became again very comfortable for who I am. And I covered my head because I wanted to cover my head, not because I had to fit into, something that was expected from me. I wore happily sari, not because I should wear a sari because I'm a Hare Krishna Mataji. And now I'm a senior Mataji, right? So I have to behave. No. So the moment I recognized that need, immediately that shaming, self-judgment, everything went down. And why are we focusing so much on ourselves? The reason we are focusing on ourselves is because until and unless we don't address this in our interactions with others, when we are talking with them, this is our internal dialogue about ourselves. And imagine the moment we start interacting with others and they have to say, do or not say or do something, it will trigger what the self-judgments we have. And then we think that they are judging us. They feel this about us. They feel that about us. Because the day we heal and the day we transcend, we address our unmet needs and, values, then even if the other person is judging us, even if the other person is trying to shame us, it will not touch us. Because we don't identify with that. And we can say, okay, you may feel like that. Okay, Hare Krishna, thank you. And we can walk away. And, nice thing about Krishna consciousness is you always have somebody, a superior that you can go to and, you can reflect with them and ask them, hey, what do you think, So that's why it's so important. It's not like we want to be self-absorbed. Because have you ever heard anybody say, I've heard, being a mentor, I've heard this many times, Maharaj doesn't love me, Krishna doesn't love me. Have you guys heard or only I've heard these things? Have you heard this? I've heard this. It's all our judgments because we don't love ourselves. So we feel nobody loves us. That's why my whole attention is on this part, because charity begins at home, self-compassion. We have to learn to be compassionate to ourselves. If we can't be compassionate to ourselves, we can never be compassionate to anybody else. Because even if we try to be compassionate to somebody, if we have our own unmet needs, guess what? In that interaction, what comes up is our unmet needs. And the focus is again on us. It's not about the person you're trying to serve. It's this is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. And I was really appreciating how proud, it's all there in Prabhupada's actually teaching if you really read his purports carefully. Like today in the morning when Maharaj, read the Jaiva Dharma quote, and I said, man, this is perfect. I was looking for a Shastric support for my, presentation, and there Krishna got that for me, and I was so excited. I went and told, I need to use that PowerPoint for my presentation, so he immediately sent it to me. So that's why it's very important. Ours is a preaching movement. Ours is supposed to be, Prabhupada said, I created a whole, one big house where everybody can live in. So which means that we have to care for each other. We have to be loving, compassionate. But most of us don't feel that, do we? To be very honest. Do we feel that in our society, in our community? No. And why don't we feel that even though we have this unmet need? And what is that unmet need? The soul's desire to be a servant of Krishna. The soul's desire to lovingly, happily, joyfully serve with other devotees, Krishna. Those are those unmet needs at a more deeper soul level. Why? Because at a human level, we have not really, we talk high philosophy, we talk big things, we are chanting, wonderful. But parallelly, we have to address this very fine, aspects or very fine blocks, obstacles that we have in our heart. If we don't do that, then whatever we do will not be very effective. It may last for 3 years, 5 years, you'll be a fantastic preacher for 10 years. But guess what? Because you're so sincerely serving Krishna, you're so sincerely chanting, Krishna one day will, if you're not paying attention to yourself and not showing self-compassion, Krishna will force that on you. In many different ways. You lose interest in chanting, you lose interest in, you lose faith in devotee relationships. Because we didn't invest in ourselves. We always invested something out there. And we felt that something out there or someone out there will fulfill our unmet needs. No, nobody can fulfill that for you. You have to do that on your own. Is everyone still with me? Is it helpful? Okay. We can go to the next. Somebody can read this. Some Prabhu, maybe this time we can go back. This is a very, very important. Go ahead.
An important aspect of
Keep close because apparently online people can't hear from that microphone.
An important aspect of self-compassion is to be able to emphatically hold both parts of ourselves. A, the self that regrets a past action, and B, the self that took the action in the first place.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
You need to hold both. You cannot reject one and hold just the other one. You will not make the progress. You have to, without any judgments, you have to hold the past, and then you have to hold the moment when you decide that, okay, I want to work on this, and I need to move forward, and whatever it means, whatever it takes. So now I'm going to, it's 5:37, I think it's good time. So we go to the next slide. And can somebody distribute this? This could, in the classroom, maybe I can ask the group what you want to do. Give some to the women and... You can just do the whole thing. Oh yeah, there was, while they're distributing, one important thing I forgot to tell. There is this nice example that Marshall shares. I was trying to remember a parallel thing in my own life to give an example as a devotee, but it gets too personal and I don't want to embarrass anybody. So I'll use Marshall's example. So Marshall is in this, he's doing this great presentation, you know. He buys a new suit, you know, nice gray color, light gray suit for his presentation. And after his presentation is done, a lot of people come to him and they ask him to give him his autograph and sign his book. And, you know, he's very busy doing that. And he has the next engagement and he realizes that he's getting late. So very mindlessly, he takes the pen, puts it in his pocket of his suit, and he walks out of the, you know, the auditorium. And in 5 minutes, he realizes this nice polka dot on his nice gray new suit. And he's supposed to go to the next engagement, like whatever he had. And he was so upset with him. And he was like, and this is a person who has been doing this for 20 years. And he writes in the book that for 20 minutes, like he's so hard on himself. And how could you be so stupid? Like, you know, your new suit is totally destroyed and, you know, blah, 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 blah. He kept doing this. And then after 20 minutes, he realized, man, I'm doing this. I'm teaching this, but he catches himself doing this. So he immediately pauses and he asks, you know, what is that unmet need I have? Where is this frustration and anger coming from? And then he says that he was feeling that in the process of trying to meet the needs of others, because others wanted his association and they wanted autograph, he wanted to reciprocate it. He didn't pay attention to his own need. And his need was he was getting late for his next engagement. So he mindlessly put the pen in his pocket, which ruined his suit. So then the previous slide with it, we hold both the things together. So he said, okay, I have a regret that, I didn't pay attention to my need. So next time, it's human. I don't have to, be heavy on myself. Next time I'll pay attention, be more conscious that, of my needs, And at the same time, the way he reconciled with the situation was, he said, but I also had another need, because need is not just one need, there are layers of needs. Please understand that. In any situation, it's not just one need. There are many needs and many layers of many needs and values. So his other need, he realized, was that he likes to reach out and share and be compassionate with others. So he said that need was fulfilled. So that's the example he gave. So now that you all have this, did everyone get to take a look at it? It's pretty self-explanatory. So this is an exercise. Would you like to do in group, or would you like to do this individually? Individually? Okay. So it's 5:40, 6 o'clock is Gaur Aarti. Don't worry, we have part 2. I don't know, it's yay or So you can start working on it. Take your time, there's no hurry. I intentionally I've kept 20 minutes, but take it home. And if you want extra sheets, I have some extra sheets, to go home and reflect and write. Go through the process. It's exactly what I've all talked. And see, in the section C, what you see is what I'm feeling. That I've not typed in that because there was not enough space. But if you want to write on the side, basically current feelings and needs, where it says current feeling, it's actually, you can write, when I am feeling, what I'm feeling when I have these thoughts of myself. In other words, my unfulfilled needs behind the feeling. So there was a question about, I don't know how many of you are confused. C, current feelings and needs, and D, empathy. So what's the difference between the two? D is when you did what it says, what needs of mine are I trying to fulfill when I did what I did? So this is this connected to this, right? And this is like when something happened, you judged yourself and the feeling you had. Remember the slide I showed of holding the two things together, this one? The self that regrets the past action. So D is that. And the self, D is that. And the self that took the action in the first place. Go to the chart. That's the C. Actually, this is my creative work. I'll tell you what. What I forgot was this arrow in the diagram. Huh? What?
I was saying that there were two missing.
Yeah, two missing, but this comes here and this here. I forgot the arrows now. It's only now I realize. But I'm not going to shame myself for that. So just draw the arrow so it makes sense. So it's 5:50, 2 more minutes. And we will be continuing part 2 with this, so don't worry. I won't ask you to share. Yeah.
What if we don't know how to address our needs, like to actually answer that point in current request of myself? In trying to answer that particular point of current E. Yeah, so now, like, whatever the situation I took for myself now, I could answer to the current feelings, I mean like C and D, but I couldn't actually understand how to request to, I mean like current request of myself, like how to address the problem. I couldn't understand. So in that situation, how do we act?
So the question is, I have addressed my initial need that prompted me to act in a particular way. Then I went through the whole self-judgment and then I realized what is the need actually underlying the self-judgment. So how do now I find a solution? How, okay. So you are asking, aware of my current feelings and unfulfilled needs, I would like to address my need in D in this manner. So once you know what your need is, you need to ask, you have to then find resources. What is that need? Depends upon it's where you need somebody that you can go and ask help to help you understand the need and how to address that need. Please understand this, you don't have to go through this process all by yourself. There are always people who are very experienced, spiritually more, wise, not husbands. Because I saw somebody smirking. And not the wives. Go to somebody, because this is very personal. It's what you're asking very specific. I would like to know what the need is to address. Because it depends upon what the need is and how to help you understand what that need can be, how it can be addressed. So reach out to somebody who can understand you, who can help you. So there are 2 questions. Goloka, you want to ask your question? And then there is an online question. Huh? Krishna Sundar also. Okay, let's do quickly before Gaur Aarti starts. Quick, yes.
Like sometimes we know that this is my need, but spiritual master says that go path B, but I want to go path A. So how to resolve or how to fulfill our needs and fulfill the spiritual master? Like
how many of you have this challenge in your life? You have a need, you want, and you realize that, okay, I want to take path A. But spiritual master says, take path B. So how do I reconcile with that? I said, I go through that. And I was asking how many people go through those kind of challenges. So you're not alone, Golok Prabhu. So first you recognize what your need is, you have recognized it. So when the spiritual master is asking you to take path B and you're not able to follow that, then there is a need underneath that too, because you are following that even though you want to do this, but you're doing this. So then you need to ask yourself, what is the need that you're trying to fulfill by trying to follow the spiritual master? Like I said, there are layers. And when you realize that, you will feel, you'll get the answer. Because if you are comfortable with your needs and you recognize your needs without any judgments, and there's self-acceptance that, this is the instruction, but I'm not yet ready to take that instruction, but I'm like, I should do it, this is the should thing, I should do it because a disciple is supposed to follow. Then you have to ask yourself, why is it I'm not able to go and express my unmet needs or my struggles to my spiritual master? Because then that will show you that maybe you have in your mind, a surrendered disciple is one who keeps saying yeah, nods to everything, and you need to follow. But that's not what the spiritual master is saying. Especially our spiritual master, he says the relationship between the disciple and the guru is that of a dialogue. So that's the dialogue. You have to, so there also your unmet need is there. And believe me, with any authority, it's mainly we project a lot of our own experience in our childhood, what experience we had with our authorities, like with parents, with teachers, etc., etc. Did I answer your question or? So there was this online question. What was that online question? And then Krishna Sundar Prabhu.
I can relate to unmet needs and desire. Could you please give me an example of unmet value?
Oh, values are like honesty. That's a simple thing, relatable, value in devotees. Sometimes devotees will tell, can you please, so many things, can you come for this home program, or can you do this service? And you have a lot of things like you don't want to do because you're overwhelmed, your plate is full, and you may say, I'm so sorry, and then we make an excuse. I've done that, I won't lie. I've done that because sometimes it's hard to say no. So I give some excuse. So I'm not being honest. So why am I not being honest? If I go underneath that feeling, because I don't want to look as if, I'm not being nice. I want people to think that I'm a nice devotee. So that's how it translates, values and needs. Krishna Sundar Prabhu? Close, I can't hear you.
Mentioned that shame and guilt are the symptoms of self-hatred, and one cannot improve by those. But we can see in the pastimes of Pingala or in the pastime of Dhritarashtra, they felt ashamed of themselves or guilty of themselves, and they achieved self-realization at the end because of what they felt of what they are doing.
Yeah, in the case of Dhritarashtra and all, but in case of Dhritarashtra, how much time did it take Vidura to bring about that transition? It's a journey. It's a journey. The scriptures, the way I see it, the examples in scriptures are, that gives us hope that in the most, you may be in a most, what do you say, what do you say? What's the word? Help me with the word. Yeah, helpless. Or
Fallen.
Huh? Fallen is again a shame term. No, I don't want to use fallen. No. Helpless. You may be feeling very helpless. But the scriptures are, the whole Bhagavatam is example of why do we have these stories? To inspire us. It's okay, you can be a Pingala, you can be a Dhritarashtra, but by the mercy of a devotee, you can, transcend that. But the problem is many of us, how many of us can put that kind of an absolute faith in chanting and absolute faith in the scriptures? We're all not there. So parallelly, like I would say, and this is not that everybody in this room has to follow from tomorrow what I've said. I'm giving you an option, an alternative. That while you're reading scriptures and while you're chanting and while you're doing all your sadhana bhakti, there are other ways of doing things in addressing your obstacles so that you can remember Krishna. So my understanding is that the examples in the scriptures are showing us that it's possible to transcend no matter how helpless or how difficult the circumstances are. You can still transcend.
My question is mostly on the feelings of shame and guilt. Are they entirely wrong?
Feeling if it is self-attacking. See the slide, I need to go back. Good, you brought that point up. Because in the slide, it says regret should, where is that slide? Sorry, he says it very nicely. Mourning is an experience of regret, but he's not saying you should not regret. So Pingala and Dhritarashtra, they regretted after a while, right? Then they got, they got over their obstacles or their blocks. So say mourning is an experience of regret, but regret that helps us learn from what we have done without blaming or hating ourselves. So those two individuals, the examples you have quoted, they didn't do that. One needs to regret. If there is no regret, you cannot reform yourself. There has to be a recognition and there has to be regret, and then you need to reform yourself. So, but what we do is we regret and we attack ourselves before even thinking about reforming ourselves. So that's the difference. So am I clear now?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. It's 6. Oh, Aarti has already started? Oh, sorry. Okay, so any more questions? Because okay, I need a quick 1-minute feedback. Is this helping? Because I have to do part 2. So if this is not helping, then I will try to change my... Okay. Next presentation. Yes.
Maybe when you're taking us through the exercises, just to give that example. When you illustrated Marshall's example, that crystallized a lot of things that I wasn't quite sure about.
Yeah, Prabhu gave me the same feedback, that more examples. Yeah, good.
Mataji?
Yeah.
The last exercise you have given, if you could have been given any examples how it was filled out also, could have helped out.
Okay, next presentation I'll start with that. Okay.
Can I?
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
And then one more point you mentioned, self-hurting, self-beating. In the corporate world, they use a word called maladaptive perfectionism.
Oh. Oh, I learned something new today. What's your name, Prabhu? What's your name? Adhir? Thank you for the compliment. Thank you. It's very encouraging. Yes, Premarasa.
Mataji, I had difficulty in doing just the last part, the E block. We identified everything until C, D, but to put the C and D together into E was the difficult part.
Anandarada had the same challenge.
Yeah. Maybe next time when you're doing the part 2, we can start with this and just getting the E part. out of from C and D.
Yeah.
But everything else was nice, Mataji.
Oh, thank you, because this is my
helpful.
first time presenting this, and I must say the biggest, I went through a big anxiety attack yesterday, so I had to go, I froze for 4 hours when I realized that I have to do one more presentation, and I was thinking, And the other thing is that somehow Krishna Leela Mataji and I didn't connect because she left for India. She gave me a time slot. I was supposed to call her. Usually I always discuss with her, and she really knows how to ease me out. She's like, oh, you'll be fine, Himanki. But, you know, I couldn't call her. I was going through some crisis at the temple. The time she gave me, I couldn't call her. She left for India, and I was totally feeling miserable. And I said, man, not one, now I have to do 2, like, you know. So you all have been very encouraging. Your responses and your feedback is welcome. Yes. If anybody wants to leave, please feel free to leave.
I think it was a really good exercise, for me at least. The only thing that disturbed me was the fact that you said that the turtle should go on the back of the monkey.
It's just one of the creative possibilities.
I know, but like really just trying to apply that in life is difficult, you know. So maybe like more realistic things we could do, because like if you can't fit in the box, then you just leave the box, right?
See, that's good you brought that up. I completely forgot. When I was going through my material and I was going through it, Marshall makes that point. He gives this example that one day, oh, maybe I should read it. He says it so nicely. See, Krishna's arrangement, all the points that I forgot to mention, people are bringing it up so I can share with you guys. This is a very good, this was such an important point actually, and I'm glad you brought it up.
For me personally, being African American, I feel this way all the time.
Oh, believe me, I'm Indian and I'm in America. We feel the same way.
I have to make my own box, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, this is very important. I'll just read this. It's better because I don't have time to. He talks about, you know, yeah, thank you for the light. Man, where? Was it this book or this book? Actually, he mentions that, you know, he was a clinical psychologist, so he had to write clinical reports, and he didn't like doing those. But he would do it. You know, he did something that he was really not liking to do it. And, you know, he would like literally, oh, I should do it, I should do it. He would do that. And the other thing he didn't like doing is the carpool with his kids, like, you know, taking his kids and the friends, you know, twice a week or whatever to the school. So, and he realized, man, I'm trying to create this whole thing and I myself, and he had to face his own devils, you know, like his feelings. So then with the clinical thing, you know, he said, do I have to write this? Because, and he asked what was the need to do his clinical reports. And the need was, he found out, is the money. He needed the money because when he writes his clinical reports, apparently he gets money. So he said, oh, money is the factor. So he said, then I don't want to do this. And he stopped doing it. And what he did was he found other creative ways of earning money to support his family. And with the children's situation, he explains, he couldn't stop taking his kids. So he asked himself, oh, I don't like, you know, because I don't like to carpool. Basically, he didn't like that. But then he asked what was the need or the value. The need was the schools in his neighborhood were not good. So he put his children in a private school, which was not close to his house. So he said the value is that my children are in a good school, you know, and learning really good values and what I believe in. So it's worth, you know, taking the effort and, you know, even if I don't like, then he connected with the value. Then he found it meaningful. So sometimes, like for instance, I found this devotee, like, you know, he joined the temple very enthusiastically, yay, you know. And After being here for a few years, he slowly started losing the interest. The values that, like, were not the same for him anymore. Like, he was feeling that his needs were not being met. He felt that, what he believed in, the values that he struggled, but he didn't realize that. He came and talked to me. What should I do? Like, I'm supposed to be happy here, people are nice here, but why is it that? So we went through this whole thing. And you know what he realized? At this point in my life, I'm not meant to be staying in the temple. And I can still be outside and practicing Krishna consciousness. It's not that only if I stay in the temple, I can be a devotee. I can be outside. So he chose to, so sometimes, yes, you may have to make those choices. Am I answering your question? Thank you. This was a very important point to, I wanted to bring to the presentation, but it completely skipped my mind. But see how Krishna works. Whatever needs to be presented, he will make it happen.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Personally, in my life, what I've realized is when I've gotten to a point where I just, I'm going to make my own box. And I realized that people now, they want to come into my box, So why even stress yourself over fitting into... Why stress yourself over fitting into this thing when if you create your own thing, people will go this way anyway?
People will come, something you have to understand is people will come, like I mentioned in the presentation, just helping see, you created your box, but I'm sure if people are coming in your box, it may be because you have understood your need, and without self, punishment or self-judgments, you address those needs and you created something that works for you. You're carrying a positive energy. You are working towards life. Everybody wants that. Who wants to go backwards or towards death? Death means like no life and, feeling stuck. In that sense, I mean death. So when you create a box with a very, that you have met your needs and, not with guilt or shame, naturally people will be attracted to, the box that you have created. So because they also want that. But we are not very conscious when we are doing that. But now you will know after this presentation why that happens. Like my husband, when I became the temple president, he laughed and he said, Himangi, the day you'll become temple president, almost everybody will leave the temple. There'll be nobody in the temple. It's true. Because I think more first, not as a temple president, but I think more as a devotee first, like as a human, not even a devotee, I would say as a human being. When I told this brahmachari, like, yes, and I'm thinking, man, as if I would have thought about as a temple president, I would have think, man, how am I going to replace this guy? But I didn't want to think that. I have total confidence in Krishna, that Krishna will make whatever arrange, because I genuinely want this soul to go in the journey, do make the right choice. And you know what? He told me, what if, the choice I made is wrong? I said, it's okay. You have to first try it out. You have some unmet needs. You focus on those without shame and guilt. So we have to, if we really care for people, see, our philosophy is very high, but our struggles are all here. And sometimes it's very hard to relate when you're here, what's here. So there is a process. So I'm not even actually talking, if you see my whole presentation, it's not talking, that's the reason I started, it's a journey. And you will hear a language or the terminology that you're not really used to in ISKCON presentations. It's different. Because until and unless you are not a human being and you have not addressed your human needs and feelings, how are you even going to understand anything that's transcendental? When you're so stuck with so many fears and guilt and shame and, you know, all blah, 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 blah. And then you're reading the philosophy and then you think, oh, I'm supposed to be like, you know, when my son was young, he had so much pressure that people would say he was cute, little plumpy boy with, you know, hair, or everybody used to say, oh, he looks so much like Prahlad Maharaj because his name is Prahlad. And what we didn't realize till he grew a little bit older, that he took so much of that pressure, because when he would be running around the temple room, they would always say, Prahlad, you're not supposed to be running. Of course, you're not supposed to be running in the temple room. But instead of saying, don't run, they could have taken him somewhere else where he could run, like, you know. So he grew up with a lot of this pressure. Then I said, no, you just connect with, you have a need, you connect at your need, and, you know, he doesn't come for, there's no pressure. We as parents took away all the pressure off from him. He doesn't have to be our son, he has to be himself. You know, and he expresses Krishna consciousness in his own way. So we have to help each other. You know, the reason I did this, not because I'm an expert in this topic, I'm learning. And I got very excited. When Mara said do something, and I was thinking, what can I do? And I said, why don't I, what prevents me from remembering Krishna every minute? It's my triggers. And doing what I do, it's hard. Sometimes I have my own personal journey that I'm going through, and then being a leader, you have to extend when somebody else is going through theirs. So you have to be a container, you know, trying to contain their feelings and your feelings. And I think it just doesn't have to be a manager. Everybody's like that. You know, you're, in office, you know, the situation is like that, you know. So this, I feel this is more holistic, this kind of a journey for myself. But it is not for everyone. I'm not expecting that everybody will like this presentation. Krishna consciousness is variety. And it's the beauty of it is, like, you know, there's left-wing gopis, there's right-wing gopis. They both served Krishna, but they had different mood. So you choose your path. I'm just giving you options. You have like hearing, reading, chanting. If somebody can have like solid faith and can keep on doing that day in and day out for 25 years, 30 years, no matter what happens, you know, good for you. Definitely, that's there's no, the process is the perfect process, what Prabhupada has given. But many of us struggle. You know, I have gone through days when I didn't feel like chanting. Even after, I started in 93, my Krishna consciousness, and I thought, oh, when I was young, I thought, oh, that day will never come when I'll not feel like chanting. Man. You know, I went through that. So this works for me, and I'm sharing, you know. Okay. See you on Monday. Thank you.